Trout like an easy meal, and midges are everywhere. So today we're going to tie a pattern that imitates a midge that trout do not have to work for. In his book, Tying Small Flies, Ed Engle, who's a sort of undisputed master of small flies, says this is one of the most effective midge patterns I know. The pattern is Dynamite. We're going to tie Roger Hill's Stillborn midge. This fly, Ed Engle pointed it out in Roger Hill's Fly Fishing the South Platte. This is an imitation of a stillborn or hatching midge that gets stuck. I'm using a size 20 standard dry fly hook. I've got a 16-0 Vivas thread in gray, and I have some muskrat here. In this fly, we want a piece of muskrat, but we want the guard hairs removed. We don't want the guard hairs, we want the underfur. Here are the guard hairs sticking out up at the top that you can see. And so what we want is this kind of fuzzy underfur down here at the bottom. And this is a size 20, but I want a fairly good size clump. And so I'm just going to do my standard grab a chunk, stick the scissors in and push down on the scissors and pull up on the material, and we'll come out with a little chunk of muskrat fur. And then we need to take out the guard hairs, and so to do that, the guard hairs are sticking out here at the end. If you can see those sticking out right here. And so all I've got to do is actually grab hold of those guard hairs and just pull them out in clumps. So I'm just left with the underfur. And then I want to measure a clump about the length of the shank, and I want to tie that in right at the middle of the shank. So I'm going to tie that in here with a pinch loop. And another one, and hold on to the fur until you can get 2 or 3 wraps around it to hold it in place. So there is your shuck from the fly the midge that didn't quite hatch. You can see why this makes good dubbing for like an Adams. The traditional dubbing for an Adams is natural muskrat. So you want to trim this off. One of the things about flies this small, and this one in particular, is you want to be really careful, kind of protect the eye. And anytime you get something like this up by the eye, you need to clear it as quickly as you can. Otherwise, you wind up on the water trying to put the tippet through, and you can't get the tippet through eye because you plugged it up. The other two materials here are grizzly, and so I've got some 22s pre-selected here. One thing I found out about handling hackle this small is I didn't have any hackle pliers that would really work for this. I wound up getting one of these, which they call a hackle tweezer from TyFlyz Tools. They're about 15 bucks. And just a quick look here. It's basically a wire that comes around, but that's not an empty, if you can see in there, that's not just an empty brass tube. Got something in there that allows it to grip like a little sand and some cement or something like that. So on the size 22 hackle, I prep these the same way as others. I'm just going to pull the base down. I'm going to chop off all the real fuzzy stuff. And then I'm just going to leave the tail ends of the barbs sticking out. And I think of this as like a comb. I'm going to tie this in with the shiny side out, the dull side, and the concave side down. Take a few wraps over it. And then I'll pop off a couple of strands of peacock herl. I always clip off the very tip. Tie that in and take some wraps over it. Try to stay away from the eye. This doesn't take many wraps, 2 or 3. When you get up to the eye, be careful. You need to make sure that you can tie this in. Pull everything back that you can and tie it down. Okay, now we'll clip that off. And if you notice, this is really kind of a version of a Griffith's Gnat. Same basic materials. And then I'm going to grip this along the stem. One of the things that makes this hackle tweezer so much better than my other hackle pliers is I can actually hold a feather sized for a size 20. My other hackle pliers either just didn't hold it or broke it off, and it's very light. So even if I let go of it, it doesn't have enough weight to break the hackle. And I only really need 2 wraps of hackle on this. Because remember, this is a Stillborn Midge. Just moisten my fingers a little bit and pull back on that hackle to get it clear of the eye. And then I'm going to take a quick 3-turn whip finish, and then another quick. And when I do this, I actually push back away from the eye to try to keep it clear of the eye. And that's Roger Hill's Stillborn Midge, still trailing its shuck.